Hello and welcome to my therapy session. In today's episode of endangering myself to exposure from a weirdo and becoming a focal point of his sick revenge fantasy thoughts for the rest of my life. Yes, that's a title, it's a series. And not because the subject of this video made videos on every creator who called him out over anything and made up things like fake scenarios in which they get sexually harassed in their workplace before, but because I'm afraid that thanks to my single stray of long hair, he's gonna mistake me for a woman, or even worse, a girl, and will follow me everywhere I go publicly.
Almost on the same level as finding out that Jar was behind me in a CVS pharmacy when I was with my friend James, and I didn't even know about it until I watched one of the calls covered in this video that he'd done about this a week ago. I found this out 2 years after it happened.
It's one thing for humans to be absolute despicable and desperate pricks, but this case is special, as we're talking about just a robot, adorably called Jar by the vast majority of the community. Which is great because you can now insert any kind of accurate to the person at hand euphemism using the word pickle. This robot's programmist had to be a redditor with at least 30k plus karma points, however, as they conveniently forgot to teach him boundaries. Let's take a step back though, because as much as I know that he's been exposed with damning evidence a little while ago now, I'd say that he raised so many red flags long before there was any real talk about this deviant that's ostracized even from deviant art.
Before I even started my Just a Robot channel, I got slandered and bashed by the DeviantArt ranting community. They falsely accused me of a whole bunch of things.
But we'll get to that part in a moment, because first and foremost, I want to use my innate superpower as a creator that's not a news reporter and is observing the topic before tackling it, called the power of hindsight. So let's start from the beginning.
And my personal favorite, Jaden Animation.
No, I know that his adoration of Jaden Animation that's been going for years and has resulted in him getting to commission a 17-year-old to draw a NSFW image of her is disturbing as all hell and wrong on so many levels, but we'll talk about it later. Wait, I just told you most of that story already, haven't I? Well, pardon me for addressing one of many elephants in the room. At least now you know with what we are dealing with here. I'd like to say that we'll start from the beginning, but his first channel was created in 2013, and as far as I know, he was the same old Autobot focusing mostly on YouTube controversy back then. The typical low-hanging fruit commentary, and if any motherfucker says same as you in the comments section, then you're spitting. But other than him talking about popular bad stuff, which I don't think is anything wrong, surprisingly, and other than the premise of those videos having actually an interesting spin on them, as he was responding to videos of other channels and pushing back against their opinions. But the thing is, his opinions were also just a bunch of extremely casual takes. Everything coming out of his mouth was said before, which once again, that's fine, I guess. Boring, but fine. And it's boring because he was never really focused on being humorous with it, or never really focused on entertainment itself in any way, really. Unless I'm just not getting something, but we'll get to his sense of humor in a bit too. His first account eventually got hacked, according to the statements of the machine we're talking about. And our wholesome Roboboy Jar was done with criticizing other creators, seemingly being tired of it, which is funnier than any joke he ever made, especially in hindsight, seeing as he never stopped responding to basically any negative video against him and had beefs that last to this very day. In fact, he has an entire channel for that, but back into the narration though. Our protagonist got tired of talking negatively about YouTubers, but criticizing was his bread and butter, his secret ability, his entire bug, so he couldn't just abandon being more robotic and totally not biased in his critique than IGN, so he started focusing heavily on reviewing movies and video games. He was also involved in the art community as a whole all this time, and quite heavily at that, as other than his infamous DeviantArt account I already mentioned, you can also find him being credited in Animation Rewind's videos, for example. And if you don't know this channel, then then let me tell you, it was a really big deal back in the day. Currently, it's known as the We Have Death Battle series at home thing, but you can find Just a Robot collaborating with them 6 years ago as well, and they were a pretty important part of animation community on YouTube during those times. I wanted to say that this is a mental note for later, but I already told you about one situation with a YouTuber from animation community, so I guess that monstrosity of an image is already stuck in your head. You've done my job for once past me. Damn. So you probably won't be surprised if I tell you there's more where that came from. Other than this YouTube Robocop also making some politically leaning videos, which robots are apparently fucking interested in, like it's some dystopian future, or at least that constantly malfunctioning one is. Maybe our species are not so different after all. Okay, that's all the political talk you get. I don't care about his opinions about that. Maybe other than him being low-key racist. But I guess that's on brand with one of those studies on robots from 2018. So we are the dumb ones for not expecting that beforehand. Was he sometimes being called out in the classroom for such opinions, or for him having very weird comments and portraying his very extreme views on women in general? Yeah, he did. Attentive ones would call me out for the fact I already said that he was responding to creators talking badly about him for a long time. So I spoiled you the answer. If you were one of those humanoid creatures, then goddamn, you could be a detective. But he was still overall very much respected, and his opinions weren't really viewed as, how I call them now, extreme by majority of people. YouTube's very own Robo Justice also had a big drama with some of art community members back in 2018. It was quite clear that he wasn't really liked there ever since then, but it was Jar who was seen as the absolute victim there. Skynet on Viagra received tremendous amount of support throughout their entire beef when it was him against the world, basically. Intermission. I fucking hate how he used the wrong keyword form in his Twitter bio. And since we got completely out of topic, then subscribe. Okay? Otherwise, I'll turn into a robot myself and start attending conventions. And trust me when I say you don't want that. Wait, what was I talking about again? Oh, the previous controversy. Right. So I've seen this thing, and then this video, and me. And while I think his reasoning for joining a community he thought was doing wrong things by spreading hatred was naive, to say the least, I do understand how it can simply be a problem with understanding social interactions. Mr. Heartbeeps admitted through his own words that there is a problem there. So it's fine. And overall, I'll say that not all support shown towards him was unwarranted. A lot of proof was shown in those videos, and I can confidently admit that Jar was done dirty at that time. But there is one little issue I have, and it involves our aforementioned superpower of hindsight. Because even in those videos, our science class subject point blank stated that their argument for treating the YouTube version of Andrew Martin this way was because he was constantly making them uncomfortable. And that's an ever-repeating offense that we can see not only on his channel and all his internet activity in general, but even in his personal life. Yeah, you know the deal. I don't talk about strictly personal stuff of anyone basically ever. So if you didn't know that before, then now you can probably guess that this Terminator of personal space talked about it publicly. Because he did, while talking about the most recent drama. So yeah, that previous big controversy of his made him look like a victim, because he partially was. I don't want to suddenly pile up on the guy only because we have way more reasons to do so and proof of who he really is now. And it's not like I could find any reliable source showing whether he said something more than he wanted to show himself there or not. So just keep in mind that this situation may be more than just poor Spotto getting dogpiled on by everyone else from that group, which was also full of controversies, by the way. But even with their reputation, it doesn't make much sense knowing what we know now, and he only showed calling one of the members there dollface, like it's 1950s. But we don't know whether that was the only only thing he said that could be received negatively, or whether this was just a straw that broke the camel's back kind of thing.
What do we know for sure though?
Alright, I hope you're ready, because all of this was basically a warm-up. Now it's time for the 100-meter run of self-career assassination served by Chappie, waiting at the end of the line for us. So let's get to it. The funniest, most ironic shit ever is the fact that he was exposed because of somebody else's drama. There was no previous allegations suddenly surfacing en masse before it. Imagine making a video so bad, so morally dubious, that it makes people who interacted with you a long time ago recall just how fucking weird you were to them back then. Bear03, the main antagonist of that story, because yes, we're basically spending all this time on a goddamn side character it turns out, was outed for being a groomer. Another YouTube predator added to the collection like they are that one banned Yu-Gi-Oh card that forced you to get into physical contact with the other player basically. And naturally, everybody who got the wind of this situation didn't particularly appreciate the one who wrongly inputted first 4 letters for her YouTube name while trying to accurately describe herself through a meme that was popular during the 2000s. It didn't tickle their fancy, so to speak. To surprise of no one, is what I would say if I was talking about anybody not calling themselves just a robot. But I guess I'm out of fucking luck, so I have to tell you otherwise. In an absolute commentary Hall of Fame worthy classic performed by Android 20 from the timeline in which he mistakenly put a wooden plank where his brain should go, we can find a 1.5 hour interview of a groomer. Now, if you are anything like me, that could potentially sound interesting. We could get some insight into how such a screwed up mind came to be. Maybe how to easier avoid these kinds of people. What could potentially be some signs that they may have those devilish intentions. Nope! Sorry to disappoint you, but this video is somehow one of the most boring and offensive things at once I've seen in a long time. I didn't even think it was possible to be both in such an extreme way. The only reason I never said it was the most boring was because I've seen the 2-parter from Jar we talked about a couple of minutes ago. To paint you this picture, and as you can see I'm very talented at doing that, because I'm not going to subject you to hearing this shit out. First part involves our silver-tongued devil stating his stance on these particular circumstances, and those are as follows.
Nobody defended Sunny Bear, and the one guy who defended her is actually kinda hated on the internet, so he made it even worse. You know who's very credible and respected though? That's right, I'm here to fit those shoes and show you another side justifying a groomer. I really do wonder why you didn't think of that side before yourself, but I guess that's what I'm here for. And there was a lot of lies in those allegations. In fact, Sunny herself was lied to.
Which, admittedly, that last part was the funniest line sprinkled into that badass intro. I imagined him pulling out her birth certificate being like,
You weren't actually 20 back then, you were 16. No predatory behavior there, folks. You dodged a bullet, Sunny. Anyway, do you wanna fuck?
And although I might have just slightly spoiled one of the main plot points with that last part, here is where I would normally go over some of the points Pickle has made and debunk them. But I want you to understand the level of heuristics we are dealing with here. The first real argument, 8 minutes into the video by the way, riveting pacing, of his was that she admitted to her crimes almost immediately, and no other groomer has ever done that. I'm being real, this is an actual point he was making and trying to factually prove it for about a minute. And this is also one of the main arguments afterwards, as if he proved it to be correct within that 1 minute of saying absolutely nothing. I'll go past the part where he said grooming requires intent and she didn't have any while inappropriately texting minors. And the proof for that is that she didn't publish any lewd drawings of minors when she was an adult. We're just gonna skedaddle paddle right past that the same way we will with the fact he mentioned in the video how he just skimmed over most of the documents showing actual proof of her actions and later on admitting that he didn't read them at all in an interview. Because I hope I don't have to tell you how moronic and very wrong every single sentence formed there is. And we'll get straight into the nitty-gritty stuff. The magnum opus, clearing Cindy's name up once and for all. Remember that
Cindy was lied to.
bit? Well, here comes a real kicker, because
She is not a pedo because she would do it with anyone regardless of their age.
with this personification of the concept of morality within a robot veil, laughing at calling somebody a groomer when they are not predators, and
Boss. It was the minors who started inappropriate conversations, so she was manipulated into looking like a groomer.
let's start from addressing the first thing. Clearly, HK50 didn't watch the video about predators that's up on this channel, because there we talked about different types of predators and how psychology generalizes them into two main groups: true and opportunistic. I'm not gonna get into this topic again, so just know that what he said there is straight up false from not only moral but also a medical standpoint. That's not how a human brain works. Just because they are not only attracted to minors does not make them non-predatory. Sorry to burst your bubble there, bear lover, but since you claim to be all about facts, I'm sure you appreciate this educational lesson. Regarding the second part, you're gross. You're just disgusting. Nothing more to say here, really. If you put the blame on a kid over a grown-ass adult in a situation like this, where she was clearly, constantly being overly sexual, then the problem lays within you, not the kid, and not in the people criticizing you for saying something as unhinged as what you did. The rest of the video is a groomer and her knight in shining armor that already proclaimed that he's fully on her side at the beginning, bonding over getting hate on the internet. I couldn't make this shit up even if I tried to. And somehow, such a banger of a concept to hate watch was completely wasted because of how boringly that entire video is constructed and presented throughout. I don't know how he does it, but Jar manages to make viewers feel like he's spineless while having the coldest takes possible for over an hour straight. At this point, it genuinely might be a talent. I don't know. Why would a creator of his caliber create something like this in the first place, though? Why in the world would he try to get this out to the world if he knew, at least to some extent, that it would backfire on him? Well, here come the Discord leaks, because it turns out that while they were talking about the video and the entire controversy between each other, this sexbot was actively flirting with an alleged predator. Yes, you heard it right. It was all because he wanted to get closer to a woman that everybody turned their backs on, so that he would be the only one on her side. Basically, he groomed a groomer. Go ahead and write a book about this shit already, because this simply isn't real life. Now, let me relax, because that's not everything to it, okay? Here's a plot twist for you. He most probably doesn't even know how she looks. Yeah, he knows very little of her. She never showed her face online, and as far as we know, not even in private conversations, so somehow I doubt she did it just for her robotic knife. Stop! Okay, so I come from the future to say that you're wrong! Or rather, I was wrong. Let's not fully indulge in one of my schizo episodes in here just yet, because both Jack's and Cindy's photos were leaked. So that's my bad, it's on me. To give me a little bit of a leeway though, there's really not many places in which you can find it, other than that one meme video mocking her ass with like over 30k views. But you know what's a one peculiar constant seed of content that keeps on giving in this video? Plot twists. I'm talking about
plot twists. And this situation is no different because, and hear me out on that one, their photos were leaked, it's true. But the problem is that they leaked them themselves. All videos. Both of them! Yeah, both of those videos are almost completely gone off of the internet. But sadly, nothing is completely off of the internet once it makes it into this site. So I was able to find both original videos, and you wouldn't fucking believe it, but the same photos that our Johnny 5 complained about, saying that people kept using that one low quality photo, is put on his Nothing Burger cinematographic universe of crying and gooning interchangeably. What the hell are you on about? You gave them that picture. So yeah, I didn't show their photos in this video because I was tricked by these words and thought that it got leaked without their respective consent. But it turns out that even Slimey, who as I said wasn't even sending any pictures of herself to anyone as far as we know, also showed her face herself. So there's absolutely nothing wrong, not morally, legally or any other way really, with showing their faces. Because they publicize them, so why not? But I will stick to not showing their faces at this point for my own comfort. I'm not the biggest fan of this kind of slapstick humor, showing some damas faces, Dumb and Dumber made on the screen for everybody to feel even worse about those schmucks. I just wanted to specify that anybody who did it differently didn't do anything wrong. And it made me laugh upon this realization. Since I'm already here, coming back from the retirement like I'm Michael Jordan, the future version of myself will take just a little more of your time by talking about Jar's newest response. Because yes, after a couple of months, he did respond, and it's absolutely terrible. Okay, that's all. Back to the video. No, but seriously, he completely avoided accountability while not disproving anything because, well, he can't. And saying that he will just be moving on and will bring his channel's activities back to action. There's genuinely nothing to comment on other than the fact that he learned nothing and doesn't feel any compassion towards his victims.
Wake up! Wake up!
They never met, they've never seen each other, and he still did all of that to get closer. That's crazy, right? Well, I've got a surprise for you, because there's another plot twist. One I didn't give you any hints on, so get ready. Just a Robot, or rather, the guy running Just a Robot's channel,
Has a girlfriend!
please, if you are somehow able to explain to me his reasoning for him doing all of this in these circumstances, take as much characters, words and sentences as you need to, because I can't possibly fathom what the hell was he thinking. Look, I don't know what kind of relationship him and his girlfriend are in, and you already know I don't care, and I'll never try to dig that up. It's their own private thing. But whether they are poly or not doesn't change the fact that I simply do not get it.
Why?
It's an insanely sensitive topic. To be so pressed to make a video as to not even go through the documents showcasing proof is levels of down badness I didn't know could possibly be reached and contained for such a long period of time. The only thing I can say is that it's very jarring, and I'll see myself out of this section now. The aftermath was Jar's interview with Chad Logic, who's also like a controversial figure, which is just a common theme in this story at this point, so we won't even address that. And during that interview, our fright processor talked about, for example, how he had many problems at work from interacting with women employees because they were complaining to others, including higher-ups, how he constantly made them uncomfortable with inappropriate remarks. Sounds familiar? And the way Jar was justifying this behavior is by just jacking it all up to him being on the autism spectrum and not really being an active part of society for a good chunk of his life. So now they just don't get his humor. I have many problems with this line of defense, with the biggest, most obvious and proven one definitely being the fact that he was repeating the same offense over and over again. Autism does make understanding social barriers harder. It's undeniable. But it's not because people with it can't learn about them from experience. In fact, many times that's the only way they can learn. So it's even further amplified that once a person on the spectrum will see that something is clearly bad and leads to negative consequences, they will simply refrain from doing it again, no matter the circumstances, even if they don't necessarily feel it themselves, for lack of a better term. And I'm talking about pretty severe cases. Autism spectrum doesn't consist only only off of such extremes. I don't know how much it affects him and his day-to-day life. It'd be insanely ignorant of me to do so. But claiming it's all because of autism and it's others that need to adapt to you is like spitting in face of people on the spectrum who actively try to learn how to not hurt anyone and lead as normal of a life as they can. I genuinely hate when repeated offenders continue to shift away the blame towards anybody other than themselves. Also, him saying he stopped talking to women at work at certain point shows that he basically learned nothing. His solution wasn't to try and change. No. It was to avoid people that gave him a tough time for making them insanely uncomfortable. What an ignorant and arrogant perspective to have. That video is full of loopholes, guilt tripping, and victim blaming. So if finding all of that in others' explanations and arguments interests you, then that's the only time I can confidently recommend it to you. But that's just my opinion, of course. Last but certainly not least, during this entire shitstorm proceeding to wreck them YouTube streets at its finest, right when his video on the P-Bear started getting negative traction, it turned out that one of the fields of work in which the Borg used to pester women at was YouTube itself. The word got out of Jar pretty much stalking some girls from the art community at one of the conventions they both went to. Basically, they were online acquaintances, and let's just say they weren't on best terms with one another. Jar was allegedly weird towards that entire group, and
Of course, women in it.
throwing some sexual remarks as jokes, etc. The Jar trademark at this point, this is just his branding now. The victim talked about Jar constantly texting her, saying that he wants to meet up when she's free, even though she clearly didn't want to, throwing some weird-ass lines like how he's not gonna hurt her, which, hey,
How reassuring.
I wanted to go meet up with him right there and then, all naked, because that's how much I trusted him after reading that message, and I wasn't even involved in that thing, so I can only imagine how safe she must have felt. On another day of the convention, she suddenly hears somebody saying something to her, and even starts having a small talk, thinking it's maybe one of her fans, or a person interested in her work, or something like that, not recognizing him at first, as they never met in real life before. From his interview, we knew that he actually recognized who she is from a plaque she had with her name on it, so that's insanely creepy. And I guess she agreed, because as soon as the cogs in her brain connected the dots on who this mysterious fan is, she immediately dipped, like quite literally ran away from him, hearing his maniacal laugh in the distance. You'd think I'm making this story up, but that's pretty much how it actually went. He admitted to laughing loudly while she was running away from him as well. That's some real serial killer shit right there. Was he trying to do anything horrible to anybody there? There's no proof, and I personally doubt it, but intentions live only inside our own heads. They don't have much value until something we intended to do either is happening or already happened. Stalking somebody just to
Have a nice talk.
when they are clearly not interested and don't want to see you is a very stress-inducing breach of privacy, even if you don't take any further action at all. That doesn't make it not harmful, wrong, and bad. To summarize, we talked about someone who's probably been exposed to and took on many inceldom beliefs, whom, because of some bad experiences and many underlying issues, created a harmful image of generalizing women and probably seeing them as some kind of opportunity to him, at least according to what we can hear him talk about in
Many.
of his previous videos. And from the situations we talked about where he felt very opportunistic towards getting closer to women creators. His moral compass seems to be basically non-existent, as every time he's not opportunistic and doesn't talk about his biases against certain characteristics, opinions, and people, he just blindly mirrors opinions that get the majority vote. or what he thinks most agree with. What is the lesson from all of this, you ask? We are safe from the robots overthrowing us in hierarchy for at least a decade. Go watch these videos if you want to. This one is about how dumb it is to include politics into arguments against YouTubers whose content is not political whatsoever, and this one is about a streamer that's a grifter and constant misinformation spreading around his topic. Thank you for watching, and I'll be here for the next session.